It's 1908. The first passenger flight in an airplane occurred. Henry Ford built the first Model T car. Albert Einstein presented his quantum theory of light. And in Cheyenne, Wyoming, there was one of the largest rodeo spectacles the West has seen. While Wyoming locals dominated the previous year's rodeos, talk circulated about 3 Hawaiian cowboys. Many didn't consider the trio a threat because they made and wore wildflower hat bands. However, the Hawaiian cowboys mastered their craft decades before the Americans. Because before America's cowboys, there were Hawaii's Paniolos. And this is Legends from the Pacific. Aloha, and thank you for joining us. This is Legends from the Pacific, episode 59. Before America's cowboys, there were Hawaii's Paniolos. I am Kamuala Kaneshiro, a native Hawaiian, professional writer, speaker, and Comic-Con panelist with extensive film and television experience. I study mythology, I've encountered unusual things, and I'm a geek. You can support us by getting 2 or 3 of your friends to listen to our show. This simple request goes a long way in helping us grow our show. Our book's Kickstarter is entering its final stretch, and I've been asked what I'd do if our book had unlimited resources. Well, I'd love to have a foreword by Neil Gaiman. I've contacted him, but haven't heard back. As for our audiobook, I'd like to see what the audiobook narrator John Lee could bring to our stories, or even have James Earl Jones tell our stories. But I think it'd be phenomenal if our audiobook narrator was the actress Tatiana Maslany, who I feel is an amazing actress. #CloneClub. So, dear listener, if you could help us get Neil Gaiman or Tatiana Maslany to contact me, I'd really appreciate it. Our book's Kickstarter ends June 1st, so back it or increase your backing today. Later in this episode, your featured song, Hawaiian Word, and a brief music discussion at the end of our episode. But first, the Paniolo. I've been researching Paniolos for decades to write a fictional book about them, but that's a story for another time. Now, the Paniolo or Hawaiian cowboys were a major part of Hawaii's culture. But how did this start? For that, we must power up our time circuits and take our DeLorean to 1793 when Captain George Vancouver gifted King Kamehameha the Great a herd of cattle. The Hawaiians have never seen cattle before, and Kamehameha put a kapu on them. So the animals roamed free and flourished in the tropical paradise. But they became wild and wreaked havoc on Hawaii's environment. While King Kamehameha's son, Kamehameha II, Liholiho, tried capturing the cattle with pits, these attempts were ineffective. It wasn't until his kid brother, King Kamehameha III, our friend from the Great Mahele, Kauikeaoli, came to power, that an idea was brought to his court. It was proposed that Hawaii hire vaqueros from California to teach Hawaiians how to tame the wild cattle. It's 1832. Andrew Jackson is president, and vaqueros were brought to Hawaii. Hawaiians were quick learners, and the Paniolos emerged into the world. For the record, The earliest period, known as America's Cowboy Era, would be 30 years later in the 1860s, which was followed by the land rush of 1889. There's several explanations of how the word Paniolo came to be. Some claim the Spanish-Mexican vaqueros were referred to as Español, but some of Español's letters didn't exist in the Hawaiian vocabulary, so Español became Paniolo. Others claimed Paniolo came from the Spanish word for handkerchief, since the Paniolos and vaqueros were commonly seen with their bandanas or handkerchiefs. Another theory is the Paniolos were a combination of the Hawaiian words for hold firmly and sway gracefully. Anyone could be a Paniolo, and soon the Paniolos reflected Hawaii's diverse ethnicities. Equipment-wise, the vaqueros' influence can be seen in the Paniolos' saddle, or noho leo, which is considered a hybrid saddle. Historians credited vaqueros with influencing the American cowboys, and while American cowboys are similar to Paniolos, Hawaii's coastal environment granted the Paniolos a broader skill set. You see, ships were willing to pay top dollar for fresh meat, so Paniolos drove their herds to the coastline. While waiting for the ship's longboats to paddle ashore, the Paniolo would cast their nets and catch fish for dinner, since they wouldn't want to eat their highly valued cattle. Once cattle were sold, the Paniolo would swim the cattle into the ocean, secure them to the longboats, where they were taken to the ship and catapulted aboard from the ship's pulleys. This was very inventive, and videos online show this process. As for ranches, Parker Ranch on the Big Island is Hawaii's most famous one, which was founded by John Parker. In 1908, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid are believed to be killed in Bolivia, but rumors say otherwise, and their graves are unmarked. The Hawaiian government is no longer a kingdom, but a territory, and many Hawaiians have not recovered from losing their sovereign nation. However, over the past 70 years, the Paniolo's skills have improved with every generation. A decision was made that 3 Paniolo should compete in Cheyenne's 1908 rodeo spectacle, which was over 4,000 miles away. The endeavor was sponsored by Evan Lowe, and the 3 Paniolo selected were the cousins Ikua Purdy, Archie Ka'aua, and Jack Lowe. As stated in our opening story, many didn't consider the Paniolo a threat, especially since they adorned their hats with braided wildflowers. While Wyoming's climate is colder than Hawaii, the Paniolo were actually used to snow. For you see, Parker Ranch is located on the Big Island, and our astute listeners may recall Parker Ranch was mentioned in our previous episodes as being located near snow-capped Mauna Kea, which is the domain of the snow goddess Poliahu. So, a Paniolo's day could include them trudging through snow, wrangling their herd at high elevation terrain, and casting their nets along the coast for dinner. Now, how did the 3 Paniolo cousins fare in the rodeo that was swept by Wyoming locals? Jack Lowe placed 6th for steer roping, which is not only respectable, but impressive since records indicated he ranked 6th despite having an asthma attack during the competition. Archie Ka'aua placed 3rd in the steer roping, and Ikua Purdy took 1st place, beating the local favorites by roping his steer in 56 seconds flat. Journalists stated that because of the size of the spectacle and the talent gathered at this rodeo, the winner was possibly considered the best of the West. our three Paniolos returned home to much fanfare, where they were considered symbols of hope and inspiration to Hawaiians still mourning the loss of their kingdom and sovereignty. Today, many are still unaware of the importance, skill, and inspiration Hawaii's Paniolos had not only in Hawaiian culture and history, but American history as well. While researching this episode, none of the websites listing historic events through the years mentioned the Paniolos. In 1998, Hawaii's Governor Ben Cayetano declared it the Year of the Paniolo. In April 2012, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City added a Paniolo section. As for our three Paniolo cousins, Hawaiian songs were written about them, and Ikua Purdy was inducted into the Rodeo Hall of Fame in 1999. The cousins' accomplishments were recently documented in the book Aloha Rodeo. An affiliate link to Aloha Rodeo can be found on our website, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd use it to help support our show. Also, Disney acquired the Aloha Rodeo rights and are planning on making a live-action movie for their streaming service. Parker Ranch is still a working ranch on the Big Island, where you'll find generations of Paniolo tending their herds. As with present-day ranchers, Hawaii's Paniolo struggle making a living, but Hawaii's exorbitant costs of living and highly valuable land make things tougher on the Paniolo to survive. The shrinking Parker Ranch always seems to be fighting to preserve its land. A portion of it was lost to a resort which was built nearby. Oh, and the area Parker Ranch is in is known as Kamuela. That's right, they named the area after me. I feel Paniolos were a natural progression for Hawaiians, who always lived in harmony with nature and its wildlife. If you like what you heard, please give us a rating, write a review, subscribe, follow, and share Legends from the Pacific with your friends and family. I'd really appreciate it. Don't forget to claim your free unaired bonus episode, Hawaii's Faceless Ghost, Mujina, by joining our email list. Links can be found in our website and in our show notes, so sign up today. A big mahalo nui loa to our Patreon, Edward Pu'eo Henki. You too can join Edward and others by becoming a Legends from the Pacific Patreon supporter. Our supporters enjoy brand new, unaired monthly stories exclusively on Patreon. So become a Legends from the Pacific Patreon supporter today. I put all our funding back into our show, which means I've yet to pay myself. So now we're going into our little musical side. The Vaqueros not only helped bring about the Paniolos, but greatly influenced Hawaiian culture with the introduction of Spanish guitars. But Hawaiians didn't take to the traditional tuning. This spawned the uniquely Hawaiian freestyle method known as slack key guitar. Slack key is heard in our theme song. So while many listeners may wonder why our show has a Western-style theme song, technically, our theme song is slack key, which is as Hawaiian as the beloved Paniolos. Okay, so here's the tricky part. Our featured song is Ku'uhome o Kahalu by Bobby Modero, courtesy of High Sessions. I'm going to play a bit of the song's opening, then the lyrics and solo, because it would be too long to play these portions unedited. While our music is provided by High Sessions, I don't want to risk it. Bobby does an amazing rendition of this song because the original was performed by two guitars, by Olo Mana. But here's some of Bobby's opening. Once again, my apologies for this edited version of the song. Now to wrap things up. Our theme song is Mystery by Tavana, courtesy of High Sessions. Sound effects are by Sound Effects Factory. Our music coordinator is Matt Duffy, aka DJ Triple Bypass. Links and show notes can be found on our website, legendsfromthepacific.com, including a link to your featured song, which once again is Ku'u Home o Kahalu'u by Bobby Modero, courtesy of High Sessions. Legends from the Pacific was written, produced, and edited by me, Kamuela Kaneshiro. I also wrote our original stories. Don't forget to back our book's Kickstarter campaign before June 1st, and you may score a free audiobook done by a professional voiceover actor. The more funding we get, the better actors we can hire. So back our Kickstarter today. Your featured Hawaiian word is pipi. Pipi means cow. An example of pipi is an animal that says moo. Once again, pipi means cow. Thank you once again for listening. Mahalo, ahui ho, and here's a bit of the song's solo portion.